Now, the other two I would like to touch on is actually pound dollar and the dollar Canadian, because I've actually talked about I'm interested for the short term kind of counter trend trade. Okay, but price has been inching up little bit by little bit for the pound dollar, right? So again, a quick one on daily, you can see the impulse is to the upside. Okay, but we talked about this on the previous video that this move up here looks very slow, it's losing its momentum. Most of the time when we see something like this, there's a very high possibility it will come back down first, and that can still form the big corrective pattern for the push to the upside. And we were talking about taking this short-term trade. Okay, and of course that short-term trade is pretty decent. Why is because if you go to the 1 hour, right? If I just take this as a reference, this low here around 1.2160, that drop itself is about 400 pips, alright, so pretty decent. But since we last recorded that recording, price has been inching up very little, and the question is it still intact, right? Is that short-term bias to short it still intact? My answer to that is yes, right? But again, why we don't just short it, you know, when we see that there's a probably going down, it's simply because we don't want to be involved in this movement while it's still correcting. Okay, it can keep going and then suddenly just pop, right? So we want to make sure that the probability is on our side, and what we want to look out for is number one. Okay, let's just say this here is the move. Okay, let's say I'll just do it from here. Okay, what I want to see is first a small little impulse and then a correction. Okay, so this will give me the trade to take it down. Unless I see this, then naturally I wouldn't want to be entering any orders first, because this can keep going up, and I wouldn't want to be in a position when it's in a corrective move. Okay, so psychologically it's very difficult to handle. Actually, if you look at dollar Canadian, it's pretty similar. Okay, so again, on the bigger scheme of things, we are looking for the bias is to the downside, and the opportunity to the downside is huge. Okay, but short-term wise, we are seeing that again, very similar to the pound dollar, right? This move is very slow, so we might see this as a big correction before the move down. And again, here, that's where the opportunity lies. That's again about close to 400 pips. Okay, and a short-term trade of 400 pips is pretty decent. Okay, but since we last shared, price has been falling, right? But it's still falling in a very slow manner, and this whole part here, you can see, you know, it can eventually develop into this diagonal pattern, which still shows us that the probability is still to the upside. Okay, so there's no need to rush into it. Even if it keeps going down, right? I would want to wait for a very strong impulse push to the downside and a correction before I'm okay to take the trade. Okay, because you can see here this mini impulse, yes, it's still strong, but it's still within this corrective nature of it, and for that reason, I won't be looking into the short trade even right now. Okay, but what I want is that if let's say this just do this and one more push, right, it still forms within that correction. Okay, what I want is a very strong push to the upside, breaking out of this corrective diagonal pattern, and then we see a flag, and then I'll take this trade to the top. Okay, so likely you won't see that today, perhaps by Thursday. Okay, you might see that, or if today it pops up here and starts to correct, then tomorrow we might have a trade. Okay, but until then, you know, structure wise, pattern wise, nothing much has changed. Okay, my bias on the short term is still the same. Hi guys, now I wanted to do a very quick live video here just to share with you an update about some of the currency pairs that we actually talked about yesterday as well as earlier today in the afternoon on TradingView live stream. Okay, and the market has developed and there are some movement. And I thought it would be a very good time to really share with you, right? Really behind the scenes as well, what is really happening. Okay, and the reason of why I have such thoughts and why I share out with you guys in the afternoon, right? And I want to actually take this opportunity to share with you more by doing this live video over here. Okay, so you can actually see really what's happening. Hey, and I believe many of you will be seeing this video perhaps in another time, because right now it's already like 11:30 in the night. Okay, so just wanted to share with you, right? Let me switch over so that you'll be able to see what I wanted to show you. Okay, so if again you miss out on the afternoon live stream, just go over to TradingView and then look for my profile. You'll be able to watch the recording. Okay, so just about 8 hours ago, which is somewhere around 3 o'clock today, okay, we talk about some of the pairs, and inside that live stream, I actually shared about, some of the pairs that we are monitoring. This I shared it on yesterday live video as well. And while I was doing the live stream this afternoon, okay, we are looking at dollar CAD, euro dollar, right? Dollar Canadian, euro dollar, and the pound dollar. Okay, and the price started moving around 3 p.m. while we are doing the live. Okay, and I talk about that's exactly what we want. Okay, so you can see over here, basically this is a chart on the dollar Canadian, right? And again, this pattern here should be quite familiar to you guys if you have been following me some time. And usually when we see a pattern like this, it's always telling us the probability is to the upside. Okay, and again, when we're doing the stream, it's somewhere around here, right? When price was just breaking off, I was sharing in it and say that, that's exactly what we want, right? A very strong impulse move to the upside. And don't jump onto the trade. Okay, but right now this is good, right? I wanted to show you live. Basically, whenever you see a pattern like that, it's not 100%, but there's a very high possibility it will go up. Okay, and you can see over here, this is the impulse that we want. And why I want to share with you this is simply also because if, now market is going to go into a consolidation. Okay, because we are close to 12 a.m., right? That's where the London market closes. And when that happens, we transit into Asia market, and usually that's where the range happens. Okay, and let's say tomorrow when we come back to the chart before London, and this is exactly what happened. Okay, then we have a good trade to look for the upside. Okay, and if I just do a very quick estimate, that's about 70 plus pip stop loss. Okay, it's pretty wide, so I'll probably fine tune a little bit to see the opportunity when it happens tomorrow, somewhere around London. Okay, and of course targeting all the way back to 1.4350. Okay, 1.4350 will be my final target. The risk reward right now as it stands, a very rough one, is about 1:3. Still pretty decent, okay, but of course 70 pip stop loss is definitely too wide. Depending on how price develop tomorrow, okay, we might be able to enter a trade with a much smaller stop loss, and that will increase our risk to reward ratio. Okay, just wanted to share a very quick update, right? And that's what happened. Okay, if you look at the pound dollar, right, is the same thing. Okay, again, every time you see a pattern like that, right, it starts to go higher, but it's very slow in momentum. You always expect a drop to come. Okay, and again, that's the drop that we anticipate, but we want to see it consolidate, which right now, if I zoom in a little bit, you can see, it's just forming a V shape. Okay, and again, whenever you see a pattern like this, we just stay out, we don't trade. Of course, we talk about pound dollar, and you can see that it is pretty similar. It has came down, okay, but again, no clear setup for us to execute that trade. And depending on how price develop is going to develop over here, right? You also don't want to rush into it, okay? Because if let's say this one here come down very strong, and then it starts to form a diagonal like this, then you wouldn't want to be shorting it, right? But instead, what you want to do is to look for the upside again, simply because on pound dollar, on the daily perspective, right, our bias is to the upside. Okay, so again, the importance of knowing the big picture. Okay, for me, it's the daily time frame, the big picture. At the same time, understanding the smaller perspective, what price is likely to develop first. Okay, and again, the psychology of being patient. Okay, not entering just because you're afraid of missing out, but you're waiting for the right setup, right, the ideal one to execute the trade. Okay, another one that we mentioned, I think, is Australia dollar, right? We're talking about if it comes down very slow into a corrective pattern, we'll look for the buy. Okay, and we saw that there's a very strong push down. This is a mini impulse. Okay, and this can easily develop into a bigger correction like that. Overall, for the Australia dollar, we are still looking for the buy, right? But again, right now, it's not presenting anything. Okay, and then of course the dollar Canadian, right? We talk about how this pattern here is likely going to push up. We did that. Okay, and price has recently broken this top, right? We are eventually targeting that, right? But it doesn't necessarily need to go there. Okay, right now we saw price broke the 1.4080, this top here, and of course from here you have this small mini one that usually is not the clearest. But what we see right now on the 1 hour chart, okay, is we get a very strong push down back below this high of 1.4080. Okay, and why is this important? Because if you look at the daily, right, the bias is still to the downside, right? Again, the big picture perspective, the bias is to the downside. And right now on the 4 hour, okay, while we are on the 1 hour, while initially we are talking about short term to the upside, right? It's a short term play. But right now, if we saw that within this perspective, there's a small mini impulse, okay, and the key here is this mini impulse came back below our significant high here, the short-term high, and if here starts to form a corrective pattern, I'll be more than happy to take the trade to the downside. Why? Because the daily perspective, the big picture, is due to the downside, right? And for that reason, I would say that right now we are around 12 p.m. while I'm recording this. Okay, we might get a setup or we might not. Okay, I'll let the market to show me how clear the development is, because London market is around 4 p.m. Okay, so we still have like a couple of hours to really see if the market is going to develop it. Okay, and what I can do if I want to, okay, is to go down to the smaller time frame to really identify if we get a wave, okay, a corrective tree pattern, 1 2 3 tree wave. Okay, and if that happens, then we get a very good trade to the downside. Okay, so pay attention on the dollar cat. Okay, and we are now transiting back to looking for a short setup simply because the daily perspective is still down. Right, guys, so I hope from the recordings what you have actually gained is some insights and the thought process into how we analyze and forecast the market. Right, and just wanted to again highlight why, when you see an impulse move itself, it's not a good time to just hop onto a trade because the fear of missing out. Okay, and exactly this is what we do not want to be when we are in a trade. Okay, basically you can see here this is on pound dollar, right? After the impulse move, basically it starts to go into consolidation, which means that price is not really moving anywhere. And I want you to imagine if you really had a trade running, somewhere around here. Okay, it's an emotional roller coaster ride because you can see some profits, you see your profit dissolve, you see some profits, and then right now you perhaps see some profits dissolve as well. Okay, and this is the part where emotionally, psychologically, it's very difficult to manage a trade. And it's because for that reason itself, right, we do not want to be in any position when this is what's happening. Okay, and in order to prevent yourself to be trapped in such position is to never ever jump into a trade just because the price is moving. Okay, because after an impulse move, there's a very high chance that the market will go into a consolidation, and for that reason itself, you do not want to trap yourself into it. Okay, and I want to show you another one on dollar cat as well, which we talk about, right? Same thing. After this impulse push, I want you to imagine if you rush into a trade just because you're afraid of missing it, right? And this here is where you see, if you enter a trade, you get a drawdown, you get some, break even, you get back another drawdown, and then right now your drawdown is a bit smaller. Okay, so your whole thought process and psychology is going to be affected because, one instance you see some profits or you see some losses, and then you see break even and things like that. So it's very, very difficult to manage it when price is in a consolidation or in a correction. And for that reason, you as a trader, you do not want to trap yourself during this situation. Okay, so this is where I want to show you from the start of how we analyze and forecast a particular direction all the way to how price eventually move and what are the thought process of how we actually protect ourselves and not fall into the trap of entering or taking a position just because price has moved. All right, so right now what I want to share with you is just a very quick update on these two particular pairs here. Okay, what I'm seeing over here is if this gonna correct continuously and form this pattern over here, then we will have a very good trade to take to the upside. Okay, now in the past videos we talk about targeting this low. Not necessary price has to go there, but that becomes just a reference point. Okay, of course what can happen is this can also form a bigger corrective pattern like that, and it keep coming down. That is very possible as well. Okay, but I do not want to go into too complex forecasting. Just wanted to share with you that if this continues to develop, then we might have a good trade to the upside. Right, simply because overall pound dollar nothing has changed. Okay, the big picture we are still looking to buy it. Okay, so a very quick one on the dollar Canadian. The big picture of dollar Canadian, we are looking to sell it, but looking at this, okay, this corrective pattern here, we might see one more push to the upside, perhaps forming a double top over here, a mini one, and we can start to look for the downside. Okay, of course what can happen is that this whole move here can keep trickling down, and if that happens, then we have a double bottom, and this pattern formation here tells us there's a possibility for another short-term trade to the upside. Now again, you know, the whole idea about trading is not to always just jump into the market, you know, whenever we are afraid of missing out on something. Okay, but we need to have that discipline and consistency in executing a trade. Okay, so this part here, I hope this video, right, the compilation from what we have done in the past in analyzing these two pairs to where we are right now today, okay, I hope this whole process here can give you much insights and help you in your own trading journey as well.